All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tridium Talk. Today, we will be talking about templating in Niagara, best practices, tips, and enhancements. I'm Mike Smith, one of the product owners and product managers for the Niagara framework, joined today by some of our top developers in Niagara, Michael Swainston and Tim Urenda. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat. We will answer some as we go, and we will save time at the end to answer some live. All right, what's new with Niagara? Niagara 4.10 is now available. This is our latest long-term support release, released to customers in March of 2021. And the 4.10 Update 1 build was released in August 2021. So if you don't have it, make sure you are running the latest up-to-date version of 4.10. 4.10 came with some of these great enhancements that hopefully everyone on the line has had a chance to try out. And we're excited that Niagara 4.11 release is coming soon. So keep an eye on your inboxes, and Niagara 4.11 release will be coming very, very soon. So we're excited for that. 4.11 is coming with new features that we're very excited about. The HTML5 wire sheet, some updates to the deployment and Edge tool updates. We've also added official support for Ubuntu Linux, increasing security with TLS 1.3 enhancements, now featuring BACnet Secure Connect, Alarm Archive Provider, and Archive History Provider. So hopefully you all will have the opportunity to check that out very soon if you are not part of our early access and beta program. We're very excited to announce the return of the Niagara Summit for 2022. This year we will be hosting in Charlotte, North Carolina, April 4th through 6th. And if you would like more information, you can visit tridium.com/Niagara Summit. There you will find links about sponsorship and registration. So registration will be opening soon. So come join us down in Charlotte and learn all about some of our new Niagara offerings that we have. And just like to call out some additional resources. As always, check out Tridium University. And you can go to the Tridium homepage under Service and Supports and Events to find links to our previous and upcoming Tridium talks. I want to call out a couple of specific ones that are relevant to today's topic. In the Tridium University, there's a free e-learning course on getting to know the Edge 10, in which we do cover some of the application templates and functionality that's useful for working with an Edge 10. And then in our previous Tridium talks, you can either find them on our homepage here or on our YouTube channel. There's 3 previous ones, Templating 101, Edge Tools, Application Templates and Provisioning, and deploying multiple templates in a single command. So these will dive deeper into some of the functionality. But these are a couple of years old, so we wanted to revisit the topic again to cover some enhancements we have made in the template functionality. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Swainston, who's going to give you some tips and a brief demo on some template functionality. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. First of all, let's go through a few of the 4 different template types that we have. A component template in Niagara is when you capture the contents of a single root component and all its descendants, and create a template from that to make it a reusable solution. The device template is a special type of component template, which has the root component as a device proxy for one of the drivers. There are options in the device managers under the drivers that you can use to help you have some special functionality for working with device templates. An application template captures an entire excuse me, just a second. Sorry, I be able to share. Hopefully you've been listening to me. Here's the
Yep, got you, Michael. We're good.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Mike. All right. So an application template is the entire station configuration. Well, most of the station. configuration, but it can be applied to a running station. A station template is similar to that, but is only used for the new station wizard and for creating a station from start. When I say the application template only applies to the replaces most of the components in a running station, let me show you what I mean. Here's a list of the components that are not replaced when you install an application template. You'll understand most of these are because you're working with a running station here, and some things can't be changed in that station. So we don't replace the active user, and we don't replace some other critical services that keep the station running. But beyond those, everything else in the station is removed when an application template is installed and replaced with the components of the application template. But here's a little tip. You can actually change you can change some slot values on these non-removed components in an application template if you put them into your template configuration properties, which we'll see an example of that as we get into the demos here. All right, looking a little more deeper into these 4 different types of templates, the features available in each, component and device templates, and application station templates, they all give you the ability to capture components and to define configuration properties for those components that will be can be set for each instance of your template as you create it. The component device templates also give you the ability to define external relations and external input-output points that can be applied to your template when it's deployed. They all give you graphics capabilities. An application and a station template, because it represents the entire configuration of the station, will also allow you to set some configuration of that station beyond what you can do with a component template. And they allow you to capture other files in your station, like the ACE files in an Edge 10 application. And the application template also has this optional components features, which I'll show you as we get into the demo as well. The functionality available for each of these 4 types of templates is very similar for most, but you see the station templates is only available through the new station wizard. In the other types of templates, there are multiple ways you can deploy them. You can deploy a template individually, or you can use bulk deploy options with an Excel spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is also available for bulk deploy through provisioning. So that takes bulk deploy from deploying to a single station to being able to, through one job, deploy to multiple stations in a Niagara network. And there are features available for maintaining those templates. You can redeploy a template that's already been deployed, or you can upgrade a deployed template to a newer version of that template, extending it with any new features that you might have enhanced in the original template. You can just update the configuration using the Excel spreadsheet again of a template that's already deployed without changing any of the internals of that template except for the configuration. You can do these operations also, the updates and the upgrade, through provisioning. And then new in 4.10 and 4.11 is the ability to export the configuration of an installed application template. So you can create an as-built representation in the spreadsheet that can then be used for future deployments or updates of that configuration. A few tips here, general tips on templating. First, get your solution working well before you make it into a template. Build it out, flesh it out. Use tags as you do that, because those tags can help you with automatic linking and relations as you create, as you use your templates, as you deploy templates. Also, design your solution so that you can customize it in an individual deployment through the templating features. That is, create all of the configuration properties inside the template editor that you need to configure that instance, define the inputs and outputs that need to connect to external other components in the station, and relations as well. Build all of those into the design of the template. The reason here is that you don't want to go into the internals of a deployed template and make any changes, like adding or removing components or changing slots that aren't exposed as a configuration property in the template. Because changes made internally and not through the template features can be lost whenever you go and apply an upgrade later on for that template. Some more tips here. Find and use the template config component. All the templates have them. For a component and device template, you'll find it as a child of the root component. For an application template, you'll see once you've installed the application template, there is a new application service in your services folder that gives you access to that configuration. Tip number 5 here, get organized for maintaining these template files. You'll want to build the template solutions that you can share with other users in your organization. So develop an office-wide naming and versioning convention for those files. Plan where you'll store them that is accessible to all your users, and how to distribute them among the users, and to make sure that you have your workbench up to date when you go out to a site in order to work with those templates. And when you are on site and working with those templates and deploying configurations using the Excel spreadsheets to deploy the configurations, save off those spreadsheets as a nice kind of representation of how it was initially configured, and then those can be also used to update the configuration later on, or to redeploy the template. And tip 6 here, if you don't have the right template file that you need on your workbench, that's okay. If you have a deployed instance on the station, you can find it in the station home templates folder. Copies of any templates were deployed to that station. And our last tip here gets into a bit of the spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet for deploying and updating template configuration. Understand the layering of values in that spreadsheet. So down here, the lower rows of the spreadsheet, they represent instances that will be deployed or updated through the use of the spreadsheet. When a configuration property, which is a column in the spreadsheet, for example, column D here has a set point configuration. When the value is filled in the lower rows, then that means that instance will have a unique value applied to it when it's created. But an empty cell here also has meaning. It means that the default value will be applied. That default value is found here in the header. And you see in this case, it's a value of 62. But the real tip here is that can also be cleared out and left empty in the cell. And there are reasons why you might want to do that as you apply this. If that is also empty, then it depends on what function you're using the spreadsheet for at the moment, what value will be actually deployed into the template instance. If you're doing an initial deploy or install, that means the value will come from the template component slot value that's inside the template, which is what is the default that's put into the spreadsheet in the first place. If you're doing an update of an existing template instance, you may actually want to clear that out. And in that case, that is an indication to the update function that the value that's in place there will be left alone. So for example, if you have a template with 20 configuration properties and you want to update one of them in all of your instances, You would come in here, clear out all the default values for those 19 and maybe even the 20th, and then define individual property values to update and send to that. And then all the rest of the configuration will be left alone as you apply that one value, because the default values are cleared in the spreadsheet. Okay, that's the end of our general tips. Let's get into a demonstration now. Here you see I have Workbench and I have a number of stations available to me here. There is a station here that has a kind of a demo of a rooftop unit. And you see in the configuration there's a logic folder here with some components inside here that make up the functionality of this rooftop unit. Here is a component inside that has a lot of subcomponents. It has graphics, a number of different features. Say I want to make that into a template so that I can reuse that solution in other places. To turn that component into a template, I just need to right-click on the component that is going to be the root of that template. And you see in the right-click menu, Make Template. I'm going to choose that. And that brings me into the template editor. It also has done some analysis of that particular component and found some opportunities here that are highlighted in this first tab, the template info tab of the template. Let me first give it a name, demo RTU, which will be used as the name of the template and the name of the file. There was some inputs identified, potential inputs. So these were slots that had links to components that are external, that were external to the original component. And so it went ahead and created inputs for it, recognizing that as something that you might want to link externally for any other cases where you use this template. Let me touch up the naming of these inputs a bit. I've got room humidity, set point. I've got my room temp as inputs here. There's a note here that the bind hints is empty. This is where your tagging comes into great effect. I'm going to come down here to the bind hints on this, and I'm going to create a reference to a tag that I'll use to link automatically to that room temp, and the target slot hint to the output of that component that tag selects. I'll quickly do the same for these others as well. All right. So that's the input tab. You can also define relations. This is where you define the configuration properties. So whatever configuration properties I define here will be prompted whenever I deploy this template to be customized. So this is in effect the custom configuration of the template. I'm going to grab a component inside here, slot, the fallback slot of the set point component. Rename it to just set point, and change the default value to be something else. That gives me one configuration property. For the sake of time, that's all I'll use in here, but you can create many configuration properties for your template file. Also, when it analyzed this, it recognized an opportunity to convert tag groups to tags, tags to tag groups. So I'm going to allow it to do that. Choose OK. That forces a save. So we've saved it. You'll see in the template sidebar now, my demo RTU is there. I can double click on that to bring you back to the editing. I can change it. Any of the editing that I did initially. It's also in the files in my user home. So I'm going to go to a kind of a mostly blank station here and show how that template can be used now. Under config, I have a demo folder. I've pre-created some components here that I'll have those tags that I showed you for the input connections. So I can simply create an instance of this template by dragging it onto the wire sheet, which I will do here. I can set the name of that instance, and it does the analysis, identified using the tags that it found, identified potential components that it can connect to, slots that it can connect to. So I can choose to connect by clicking the select column here. I'm going to do that for all three of those inputs that we had. You see the connections got made in the background wire sheet. I am now prompted for the configuration properties. Now we only had one, but this could be a full list of properties that I can then set specific to this instance and apply that. It's kind of a summary of what has happened. And you see here is my template deployed instance. It has the graphics in place. It has all of the other components in place that were inside. You saw how the inputs got automatically connected, and that set point component got set. We can look inside and see that. Under set point, the fallback value got set to 72 as I instantiated that component. If I wanted to make a change to that, here's where the tip was about to find the template config. The template config is an immediate child of the root, always named template config. If I double click on that, among other information about this template, you see here a list of the configuration properties for that template. And I can adjust after the deployment, I can adjust those properties here and see that value propagates to the internal set point. I can also adjust it here and it will adjust in the configuration properties. But as I said in the tips, it's best to use this as the point for adjusting properties of your template, because those are the properties that will be preserved when an upgrade might later be applied to improve the template instance. Okay, that's how you create instantiated template automatically or manually like this. Let me show you how you can do that using our spreadsheet. Here in the template sidebar, again, is our template. If I right click on that, I choose export configs. This function, it will build a spreadsheet for me. The default is to drop it in the templates folder, which I'm okay with, and to name it the same as the template. I'm okay with that as well. So I'm going to save that and choose not to encrypt it. These spreadsheets can carry passwords, so you can configure passwords through the spreadsheets. And in that case, we'll force you to encrypt the spreadsheet because it will contain open passwords, but you don't need to encrypt it otherwise. So that placed into my user home, my spreadsheet file under the templates folder. You see the spreadsheet is here, an Excel spreadsheet. I'll just go ahead and launch Excel for that. All right, that's what the configuration Excel file looks like. You'll see the 3 inputs that were defined when I created that template are listed as columns here in blue. You'll see that the configuration is listed as columns here in yellow. There's my set point. And as I said before, each row of the template can be and represents an instance to be deployed of this template. So let me create a few instances here. I'll do 3 of them. Where do I want them? Well, I want them in the demo folder, just like the other instance I created. So this is where they'll be created. This is what they'll be named. You have some tweaking that you can do here. The bind hint identifies the tag to search for in order to find something to bind to, but I need to name that. Happens to have the same name as the tag in that case. So I'm going to allow that binding to go for all three of those. And just make sure that the output slot is identified. Should have just done one and dragged and select, right? Fumbling with my mouse here. Okay. Good enough. And as I said in the tips, you can leave these blanks if 70 degrees is the right value for your set point, or you can set one to something else, as I'll do here. So there's an example configuration that defines 3 instances of the template. Let me take you to the template service then. If you go to the, I'm going to the same station where I deployed that one instance. The template service shows that and a few other templates that I've already deployed here. Shows the current status, shows that they're up to date, a few other statistics about it. If I hit the bulk deploy button here at the bottom, I can go into the user home here, template folder, where I created that spreadsheet, choose the spreadsheet for my bulk deploy, and boom, it deployed through all 3 of those templates that I defined in that spreadsheet. Returning to the folder where they deployed, you see them here, A, B, and C, all linked and configured. And I think it was on C. You'll see that the template config shows the custom set point value that I had applied there. All right, so I can create manually instances of a template. I can also deploy them in bulk using the spreadsheet. I can go even further than that. I have a provisioning server here, which I'll log into, that has a number of stations set up in the Niagara network that it can provision. If you're familiar with provisioning, this is where you define a provisioning job that you can run. So I can use that same spreadsheet that I told you about, that I created a moment ago, in order to deploy to multiple stations through provisioning. Now I go in and I choose the deploy template job step, and I choose OK. It wants me to identify a file, an Excel spreadsheet to deploy, just like when I used that bulk deploy button. But I don't have any files here to do that. That's because I'm looking at the file system on the provisioning server. So I need to first use the copy templates button at the bottom here in order to select both the template and the Excel file that I've created and copy them over to the provisioning server. So now they're in the station home files on the provisioning server. Now, if I go back and I choose deploy template as my job step, you'll see there's a template cache folder, and it identifies one spreadsheet that I can choose for deploying. Right? What stations do I want to send those instances to, those templates to? I'm going to send it to all but the one that I did before. So 4 more stations. Choose OK. Run now. It's going to do what I did on that one station through bulk deploy. It's going to do that to the other 4 stations accessible to this provisioning server. Job takes a few seconds to run here. So we'll pause a moment and wait for that to come through. Reminder, if you have any questions that are prompted as we're going along here, please throw them in chat. And I think Tim is looking at them now to see if we can provide answers for you.
How about a quick one while that one runs? Can you have
Okay.
a template protected with a password?
No, you cannot protect the template file with a password, if that's what you mean. You can use whatever mechanism you want in order to use the file system to zip up and in password protect files or things like that. For when you're sharing them, you could use zip or something like that for that. As far as a template instance goes, that can also not be password protected. The internals are open and available to modify. We just are, as our tip, as you'll recall, we said you can't go in and modify that. And of course, Niagara protects any sensitive data like passwords that might be in them already, so those would not be exposed. But as I said, you can encrypt a template configuration Excel spreadsheet file because it uses Excel's encryption and password protection so that you can protect the contents of that configuration. All right, so you can see I've got jobs here that ran successfully and created those template instances in stations. So let me just quickly open up one of those stations and you can see that, take my word for it, it was blank before, and now there are the 3 components already configured and connected. Right, so the other operations you can do through provisioning are similar to this one. And the updating of configurations that you can do with the spreadsheet is also similar to what I've shown. Let me show you in the few minutes that I have left a little bit about application templates and try to help clarify what's unique and different about an application template. So I'm going to go back to my original application, RTU application that I had open. You'll recall that I used the component inside in order to create a component template. Let me turn this whole thing into an application template now. For that, I go to the config component of the station. I can right click on that config. You'll see there's a templates menu here in this case, and you have options. This is where you could make a station template, and the process is very similar to what I'm about to show you for an application template. It also uses the template editor. And this is where you can also install, which I'll show you in a minute. Here's where you make the application template. The process is similar. It goes and gathers the entire station components, though in this case, and gives you a template editor, a version of template editor that looks very similar to what we saw for components. You'll notice that the relations and the IO tabs are missing up here. Those are not available for an application template. Let me quickly give it a name. Okay, I'm going to leave the name as it was. I can see all of the components here. You notice that the root component is actually the root of the station. So all of the components in the stations are captured in this. You'll even see those components that I told you about that aren't replaced. They have a little X next to their icon that will show you that any changes you make there won't get replaced as you apply it. But for continuity, it shows you the entire contents of the station. Here I can create configurations. Let me create that same configuration that I did before. Under RTU, comfort logic, set point, fallback. It also captures the graphics, as you see, and there's sub templates. Any templates inside this station would be listed also in the sub templates here. And it gives me the opportunity to do the same tag group conversion. So I'll quickly do that. All right, convert all those. The file that results from creating an application template does not go into the template sidebar because it's not something that can be dragged into a wire sheet like a component template. But you will find it applied to the user home under the application templates folder there. There is my file. Picking station 5 here, let's say. I'll show you how that you can instantiate or install this application template. Right click again on config in that station. This is a running station. I'm going to replace most of the contents of this running station through this operation. So I right click, choose install application template. File chooser allows me to pick the template I created. Click next in this wizard. Cancel that because I remember there was something else I was going to show you. Let me go back and re-edit that, show you another feature, and then we'll get back into that. Back into the editor for that application template. I can look at the components tab here, and let's say that I have a backnet component defined here for the room stat. That's a backnet device. I want that to be optional so that when you install this application template, sometimes there's a room stat available, sometimes there's not. So I'm going to right click that component. I'm going to toggle it to be optional. This is a menu item that's only available for devices and device folders inside an application template editor. So the room stat is now identified as an optional component. Save that. Now when I go into my station to install that template, and choose the file, the wizard shows me, hey, it says effectively, hey, there's some optional components that are found inside this template. Do you want to install them or not? I'm going to check that so that it will not be installed, that one component. It's reminding that it's going to remove components from your station, so you might want to do a backup. I'm going to choose no and click finish. It's now building the station out and listing the properties, configuration properties that define that set point property that I created. So again, I can set any properties here. We only have the one in this case. And choose OK. And you'll see now that for all intents and purposes, this has become an effective copy of the original station that I used to create that application template. Everything's here, except of course that component, that backnet stat that I told it not to install, that was left out. And of course the property values were set unique to the ones that I defined as I was creating the thing. In services, here, one thing that's unique is that you'll see an application service listed. it has a single child component called configuration, which shows you information about the template, same information that you saw for that component template in the template config. And here is where I can come in and again adjust any of the configuration that are here for that template. All right, let me just look at my list, see what else I want to demo. Got just a few minutes here. Remember that as we showed in the matrix in the beginning, the features through provisioning, the bulk deploy features and the bulk deploy through provisioning features, including the updates and configuration changes that you can do there. Those are all available for application templates as well. And the operation is very similar. Another feature that is unique to application templates and relatively new is the ability to take an existing configuration. So let's take this configuration I just created here and export into an Excel spreadsheet. So if I right click again on config, choose templates, because this already has an installed application template, there's a new menu item here that allows me to export the application configs. I choose that, and similar to exporting the configs on a template file, it asks me, where do you want to save this? I'll choose allow the default. It's defaulting to the application templates folder, which is fine. I'll save that and choose not to encrypt it. All right, so going to my workbench user home, you'll see it created this file. And I launch that file. You'll see some interesting things. Now remember, when you exported the template file directly, it only built the header. Now it's built the header and a row, the row representing the configuration that I exported. It still shows that the template itself has a default value of 62 for that property, but it also shows now that that instance that I had created, installed, has a different value for its property, a 75. And it also should list the optional components and identifies here that that component was not installed on that one instance. I can also create this spreadsheet through provisioning. And when I do that as a provisioning job, it could fill in multiple rows here for one for each of the stations that I choose during provisioning. So it gives me a version of this spreadsheet that can then be used for provisioning. This represents an as-built configuration for my system. I can turn around and use this spreadsheet to update the configuration in all of the stations in my network. And I can use this as a starting point for new deploys. Anywhere that you could use the spreadsheet created from the file directly. So I think I have a minute left here. Let me show one more thing. Remember, I said that one of the features available is an update. I can go down to, for the component template, back to the component template, I can go in here to demo RTU that I created at the beginning of this demo, and I can modify this template. Let me just for the sake of brevity, just do it by adding a new folder, call it test, as a new component. When I hit save here, it saves it. So this template now represents that new version of the file that I had here. If I go to my original station where I deployed it to, the template service again, which I showed you before, now identifies that the instances of that template are out of date. those specific 4 instances that I created, the one that I did manually and the 3 that I did through bulk deploy, are out of date. I can simply click the upgrade out of date button here, and it flags them to be upgraded, and choose commit. Yes. This is where that tip that I told you about earlier comes in handy. If you didn't change any of the internal non-exposed parts of the template, it will have captured it. This upgrade goes smoothly, and it applies the new version of the template. If I go down in here, I can look at any one of these, and well, let me just look at the folder view here. You see the test folder is there now. So right on time, here ends the demonstration portion. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Michael. Great demonstration. We'll open up for questions here in just a minute. Let me just plug some more content and resources. Again, check out Tridium University for some e-learning courses. We've got a lot of new free e-learning courses available to you. Again, Tridium Talks, you'll find today's talk archived, as well as future and upcoming talks on the Tridium website under services and support and events. And Niagara Pro Tips, you can find these on our YouTube channel, hosted by James Johnson and Kevin Mamachek. All right, thanks, Tim, for fielding a lot of the questions in the chat. Looks like we've got one that we can answer live here. Can we utilize templates to apply a standardized graphic to a third-party device whose points have already been imported? It seemed like the example was for creating new devices.
Well, yes, the example was for creating new devices. And when you deploy a template, you're always creating a new component. So if you can capture those graphics, I'd have to think about it. If you can capture those graphics as a component on its own, you can drop that into an existing device. You'd have to hopefully have the right tags in place to be able to connect to that graphic. And I'm not the graphic expert here, but that's as far as I can answer that question. So it's kind of a half answer. No, you can't use a template to modify the internals of an existing component unless you can capture all the modifications into a single child component that you can then drop in through a template. Is there anything else?
Nope, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So, thanks again, everyone, for joining today. Hopefully you found this informative. And again, lots of existing content out there on templates and getting started with templates. So look forward to our next Tridium talk in the upcoming weeks. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Michael, thanks for your time and the great demonstration today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all. Have a great day.